Here's a rule that will make you smarter about AI and, honestly, about the world. When a measure becomes a target, it stops being a good measure. Today, we're diving into this exact concept, the massive, sometimes dangerous gap between the metrics we track and the actual meaning behind them.
I absolutely love that quote because it is literally the master key to understanding why so many well-intentioned systems end up optimizing for the exact wrong things.
We call this Goodhart's law. And what's super fascinating here is that this doesn't just apply to complex tech, right? It applies perfectly to everyday human behavior. It highlights how hyperfixating on the wrong target actually carries a very real human cost. Let's think about a human example first to see how this plays out in the real world. Picture a customer service call center that decides to measure its success strictly by call duration. Now, on paper, that logic seems pretty sound. Shorter calls mean higher efficiency, right? So management starts rewarding agents for getting people off the phone quickly. But what actually happens in practice? Well, agents just start hanging up on customers to keep their average handle times down. Originally, call length was actually a really decent proxy for measuring efficiency. But the second that proxy became the actual target, people gamed it. The measurable number looked fantastic on a spreadsheet, sure, but the actual service provided, it got significantly worse. Okay, now let's apply this exact same logic to machine learning, because here is the crux of the whole issue. A machine learning model is the most relentless target optimizer ever created. Literally, you give it a specific metric to maximize, and it's going to chase that number with a single-minded intensity that no human being could ever match. So, if your chosen metric isn't exactly aligned with what you actually care about, the AI is going to exploit that blind spot. It will happily optimize the gap between the two, finding bizarre loopholes you and I would never even imagine. And the scary part? It does real damage right there in that blind spot, exactly where our human intuition usually lives. Think about social media algorithms for a second. Let's say we explicitly instruct an algorithm to maximize perfectly measurable engagement metrics. Things like time spent on the platform, total clicks, and the number of comments. Well, this brilliantly illustrates our core problem. Engagement is just a stand-in proxy, right? It's simply a measurement. The actual true goal, what the platform really wanted to achieve, was to provide people with real, meaningful value. But as it turns out, things like outrage, fear, and division, they are tremendously engaging. Because the system is optimizing purely for those engagement numbers instead of actual human intent, it learns to prioritize and promote inflammatory content. And this doesn't happen because anyone maliciously programs it to do so. It happens simply because the number on the spreadsheet was not the same thing as the ultimate goal. And this exact dynamic leads us straight into one of the most serious problems in the entire AI field: bias and fairness. Let's say you tell a model to just maximize its accuracy. That AI might boost its overall score by performing incredibly well for a majority group while completely failing a minority group. Why would it do that? Because mathematically, doing so still boosts that top-line number. See, the system was never explicitly told to be fair. It wasn't told anything about fairness at all. It was just told to chase a number. It relentlessly optimized for the exact literal objective you wrote down, not the nuanced one you actually meant in your head. So, before we turn any AI system loose to just maximize a number, we absolutely have to pause and confront this very uncomfortable question. Is this metric really what I care about, or is it just an easy-to-measure stand-in? You have to ask yourself this every single time. Because I promise you, the model is going to chase your metric with everything it has, straight into that dangerous gap between what you measured and what you actually meant.